Hi, welcome to the channel, and today we'll be listing the worst king's deaths in history. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Okay, into the video. Starting at number 10, King James II of Scotland. Death by cannon. King James ruled Scotland for 23 years between 1437 and 1460. A fan of artillery, James imported cannons and was keen to see them in action. He was standing right next to one. Instead of shooting, it exploded. Let's just say he went out with a bang. Coming in at number 9, King Charles VIII of France. Death by tennis. King Charles VIII had a 15-year reign as King of France between 1483 and 1498. His occupation as king was not very exciting. Charles showing little interest in politics and government issues. His death occurred during a game of tennis. He wasn't playing, but failed to notice a low doorway. He walked right into it and struck his head onto the door. He initially recovered but fell into a coma after the game and died a few hours later. Number 8. King Alexander of Greece. Death by monkey bite. King Alexander, who ruled over Greece in the early 20th century, had a short 3-year reign before his untimely demise at the age of 27 via a monkey bite. One day, King Alexander was walking and his dog got into a fight with one of these monkeys. Alexander tried to break up the fight but was bitten in the process. Initially, the wounds were not considered very serious. Unfortunately for the king, the wounds were not cleaned properly and it got infected later that same day. The king was then bedridden with severe sepsis and later died. Number 7. Prince Sador. Death by chest. Sador was deeply unstable and prone to violent outbursts. He became known and feared around the kingdom as a serial rapist and a killer. He first started beating his own servants, then killing them, and then raping women of the court. He basically did whatever he pleased. Yeongjo, his father, knew that the law forbade him from killing his son, but he was allowed to dispose of him with consent from his mother. After receiving consent, he sentenced Sador to be locked inside a heavy chest used for storing rice. It was opened 8 days later once Sador had died of suffocation. Number 6. Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I. Death by drowning. Frederick had a 35-year reign as emperor, most notably for his participation in the Crusade. During the Third Crusade to the Holy Land in 1190, Frederick met his demise. Frederick was leading his German troops into Turkey to face Saladin. However, Frederick would never reach Saladin because he eventually died in a river. His army reached the river in Turkey and his advisor recommended that they find a bridge to cross the water, but Frederick insisted that the river could be crossed on a horseback. Keen to prove himself right, the king was the first to plunge into the river. His horse could not handle the currents. The king was also not strong enough to swim because he was wearing heavy armor. Both man and horse drowned to death. Number 5. Frederick, Prince of Wales. Death by cricket. Frederick was the son of George II and the father of George III. Both his father and his son got to rule the United Kingdom as king, but Frederick never got the chance because he died before his father. This certainly didn't bother King George II or his wife, who both absolutely despised Frederick. And since he wasn't involved in the nation's politics, Frederick had time to dedicate himself to other passions, such as sport. He was a massive fan of cricket, the same thing that would end up killing him. Frederick died in 1751 of a burst of abscess, aged 44. The abscess was caused by a cricket ball that hit the prince during a game. Number 4. Charles II of Navarre. Burnt to death. Charles II, who ruled the Kingdom of Navarre between 1343 and 1387, was an opportunist looking to exploit the 100-year war between England and France. He often switched sides to suit his needs, earning him the nickname Charles the Bad. It was reported that Charles was very ill and his physician ordered him to be completely wrapped from the neck to the toe in linen cloth soaked in brandy. One of the doctor's attendants was sewing up the clothes so that it would be nice and tight. When she finished, she wanted to cut the remaining thread, but she didn't want to use scissors in case she cut the king. Instead, she decided to burn off the thread with a candle, but the linen was completely soaked in brandy, so when the fire came close, the king went up in flames and was burnt to death. Number 3. King Adolf Frederick. Death by overeating. King Adolf Frederick became king of Sweden in 1751 because of his aunt, the powerful Empress Elizabeth of Russia. But Frederick did not hold all the power, because the real power in Sweden was held by the parliament. On Fat Tuesday in 1771, Adolf Frederick was trying to squeeze in all the good stuff before he had to give things up for Lent. Frederick ate everything he could get his hands on, including lobster, caviar, cabbage, fish and champagne. That combination alone would make anyone sick, but the king still had room for dessert, lots of dessert. After this epic meal, the king complained of digestive problems. He died later that night and is now known as the king who ate himself to death. Number 2. Martin of Aragon. Death by laughter. Martin of Aragon had a shaky claim to the throne. He was only supposed to be regent for his niece, but not everyone wanted a woman in charge, so Martin took the throne for himself instead. In 1410, Martin ate a whole goose and later suffered a tummy ache. The king got into bed and called for his jester to make him laugh, but the jester took forever to get there. When the clown finally showed up, Martin asked him what had taken so long. He apologized, saying he's been in the next vineyard, your majesty, when I saw a young deer hanging by his tail from a tree, as if someone had punished him for stealing figs.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, in my opinion, that was one of the deadest jokes I've ever heard in my life. But Martin thought it was the most hilarious thing ever. It was recorded he started laughing and kept at it for 3 hours straight, when he finally fell out of his bed and died. Number 1. King Bela IV of Hungary. Death by furniture. Medieval Hungary was all over the place politically, but everyone agreed there should be a king in charge. However, there was no rules for royal succession, so anyone could become king. This resulted in a free-for-all, where King Bela ended up fighting a 4-year-old child to take the throne of Hungary in 1060, but the war against the 4-year-old was not where he met his end. Bela had a fancy throne with a big wooden canopy over the top. Shortly before going to battle with the emperor, he was chilling on it, probably wondering why everyone couldn't just get along. Then the wooden canopy collapsed on him and he later died from his injuries. And that was the worst king's deaths. If you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Thank you.